Well, good afternoon and welcome to this EURAXESS ASEAN webinar on the 2020 call for the MSCA Individual Fellowship. My name is Susanne. I'm the regional representative for EURAXESS ASEAN. I'm based in Singapore, but I'm also responsible for Indonesia and Malaysia, and it's my great pleasure to inform all of you today about this wonderful opportunity to carry out postdoctoral research in Europe. I'm joined today by my colleague, Nur Haida. Maybe Nur Haida, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you, Susan. My name is Nur Haida. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everybody. I'm from University Technology Malaysia, and I'm in this session, I'm representing Marie Curie Alumni Association, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. So please type any question if you have any question in the chat box, and I will try to moderate it after Susan's presentation.
Thanks so much, Nur Haida.
Back to you, Susan.
Thank you so much. So as you've heard, I'll be giving you my presentation first, and then in the end, we have the opportunity to engage with you. So if you don't understand anything throughout the presentation, or if you have questions, just type them, and Nur Haida will at the end moderate the Q&A session. So with this, I think it's time for me to start sharing the presentation, which I will do now. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen, Nur Haida?
Yes, yes.
Oh dear, but I can't see it. Oh dear. Ooh, let me see how that works. There we go. My screen is this one here, and now you can see it. Perfect. So what we're doing today is we're talking about an opportunity for you to carry out postdoctoral research in Europe with an MSCA individual fellowship. And I thought before we delve into the details, I'll tell you what MSCA stands for. MSCA, a wonderful acronym, stands for Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions, and you might have heard of this before. Now, this, of course, is the lady who's lent her name to this particular fellowship, Marie Sklodowska-Curie, who made such fabulous research in radioactivity. And what is named after her are the MSCA individual fellowships. And they, in turn, are part of a wider European funding program for research, science, and innovation that is called Horizon 2020. What's important for us to remember at this point is that this is funding, this is a budget that is earmarked for the career development of individual researchers. Before I start talking to you about this particular funding opportunity, most importantly, what are the call dates? This call has just opened a couple of weeks ago, and the closing date is the 10th of September this year. That means you have about 5 months to put together a strong proposal. The MSCA individual fellowships are dedicated to career development. So these are personal fellowships. That means this is not funding for a group of researchers or for an institution. This is meant for an individual applicant who is supposed to carry out postdoctoral research. This is also a fellowship that supports mobility. So you cannot apply for this and stay in Malaysia, but the idea is for you to move to Europe for a period of between 1 and 2 years. You can carry out your research in Europe with either an academic or a non-academic host. I'll talk a little bit about this in a few slides. But I think what is interesting to remember here, this is a comprehensive career development tool. That means not only will you be honing your scientific expertise, but you will also acquire interdisciplinary skills throughout this fellowship, how to run a budget, how to run a team, how to communicate the result of your research to a wider audience. The MSCA individual fellowship is really meant as an opportunity for you to take the next step in your career progression, to turn you into a PI. Which research topics are funded by this fellowship? And the answer is quite simply, this one is open to all domains of research. And maybe more specifically at our audience today who are from the social sciences and the humanities, this is by no means just for the sciences, the hard sciences. This really is across the board open to all ideas. This works very strictly on the basis of bottom up. That means there are no predefined thematic areas in the call, but it is entirely up to you as the applicant to choose the research topic you would like to apply with. Who can apply for this fellowship? Importantly, this is open to applicants of all nationalities. Even if you're joining us today in Malaysia, but you happen to be from a different country with a different citizenship, it does not matter. This fellowship is open to applicants from all nationalities and from all academic disciplines. There's also no age or experience limit. This is a career development fellowship. So of course, this is an opportunity for junior researchers to take their career further, but it is also an opportunity for those amongst us who are maybe a little bit already advanced in their career, but they would like to kind of make a change from one discipline to the next. For example, you sometimes find your research may be more applicable in a different discipline. Then again, this would be an opportunity for you to apply for this fellowship if you can make a strong case in your application how this will help in your career trajectory to take you higher up in your development. There are, of course, some eligibility criteria. The first one here relates to qualification. This fellowship is open to experienced researchers, which means you either need to have a PhD at the time of the deadline, which is the 10th of September, or you need to have at least 4 years of research experience. Now, a lot of you will be asking, now, what does that mean? That basically means you need to be able to document that you have carried out full-time research from the point in time when you obtained your academic qualification, which would have entitled you to read for a PhD. In most countries, in my country, Germany, that would be a master's degree. In other countries, that might also be a bachelor's degree. So as an example, if I, after my master's degree, have carried out full-time research for consecutive 4 years, then I'm also eligible for this fellowship. How do I document this? You probably have employment contracts to prove that what you've been doing, or you have lab results, or you have other forms of research output. The big majority of successful applicants does have a PhD, but still there are some that are also successful with their application without the PhD. The second eligibility criterion, and I alluded to this already, is mobility. What we're talking about today is the European Fellowship. And that means you need to move to Europe. This is an opportunity for you to carry out this postdoc research with a fantastic host institution in Europe. The fellowship can be between 12 and 24 months. And mobility rule also means if you, for example, want to go to the UK or to France, you must not have lived in those two countries for more than 12 months in the past 3 years. Just to summarize, don't get too confused. The idea is you should go to Europe with this fellowship and spend time there with your peers to get to the top of your career. Where in Europe can you go? And again, there are lots of opportunities. You can see on the left, these are the current 27 members of the European Union. All the big players are there. And I'm certain that a lot of your current institutions will already have links with them. On the right-hand side, the 16 so-called associated countries. These are countries that are not part of the EU, but they're part of the European research area. So altogether, a huge array of countries and their research actors that you can choose from to use this up for this fellowship. There is a question here, and I'm sure some of you have very strong ties with the UK. And the good news is that even though the UK is no longer a member of the European Union, UK institutions are still eligible to host fellows under this current call. So if your university already has strong ties with UK institutions, that might be an opportunity for you to spend some time there to carry out postdoc research. What else is unique about this fellowship? And I think what makes this unique is that the individual fellowships are seen as a joint effort. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that you, as the applicant, and your supervisor, your host in Europe, are working as a team. It's a tandem effort. You together have to develop a proposal, an idea that you'd like to apply with, and you together have to make sure that the evaluator that reads your proposal sees that this is a relationship where both parties benefit from each other. So instead of you just coming up with an idea and then as a second step approaching someone in Europe to see whether they're interested, you should have the idea of a potential host in mind first, and then together with that person and with that institution, develop the proposal together. What type of host institutions can you choose from? And of course, you can choose a university or a research institute, a public actor, but you can also choose to apply to carry out your research at a private sector research actor, for example, a company. There's also a very exciting opportunity that refers to secondments. The MSCA individual fellowships are all about mobility, not only in terms of from one country to another, but also from one sector to another. So you have the opportunity to build in a secondment with an organization in a different sector from the one that you're choosing as your host. For example, if you're choosing the University of Birmingham as your host, you might also build in a secondment to work with a private company that is carrying out research in your field as part of the fellowship proposal. Having a secondment is not a necessity, but it is definitely a very strong point that will work in your favor. The big majority of grantees that I have spoken to in the past have built in a secondment in their application proposal. So look at this as a wonderful opportunity for you to really broaden your horizon as a researcher, not just working in one sector, but carrying out research in other sectors as well, which is definitely going to help you in your career development. What are the evaluation criteria for these applications? And I think a lot of people will find that most interesting. There are three main criteria. The first one is excellence, the second one impact, and the third one implementation. You see on the right-hand side a comment that I've written, 10 pages max. The total application for a fellowship consists of a part A and a part B. The part A is the actual proposal, your research idea. The part B is related to your career track record, but also the host that you've chosen. So ignore this for the time being. Excellence, impact, and implementation refers to your actual proposal. And I'd like to just explain a little bit more what this means. Now, excellence, of course, refers to the quality of your research idea. How innovative is it? How credible is it? Where is it located in the current research? You yourself will already have a good idea whether the idea you have in mind is a good one or not. My advice is always don't get too concerned by the word excellence. It's a big word and it can also act as a barrier. People get a little bit intimidated, but don't get intimidated by it. Just look at this. What is innovative about your work? What is exciting you about this work? And what excites your host about it? Excellence also refers to this tandem relationship that I spoke about earlier on, about you as the researcher and your supervisor. What the evaluator and the funder is looking for is that there is a good fit between you two. There is some form of knowledge transfer, and there's also an opportunity for both of you to learn from each other. So of course, the institution that you're choosing as your host should have the infrastructure that you need to carry out your research. And the host, the supervisor that you're choosing, should be a person that has the capacity to train you, to guide you, to lead you to excellence. But you should also bring something to the table. Maybe your institution in Malaysia has expertise in a certain field that your potential host does not, or maybe you can create some form of exchanges and linkages between the two institutions. So this is very important to look at this as a two-way street. Impact refers, amongst other things, also to how well you're designing your communication and dissemination strategy in the proposal. At this point, it's very important to remember that the European Commission is one of the strongest proponent of open access and open science. So when you're designing your proposal and you're talking about impact of your research output, don't just think about the traditional dissemination channels like this journal and this conference, but think about making your research output available to a much larger audience. That will definitely be in your favor when you're developing your proposal. And implementation, of course, this is where the funders are looking for evidence that you are choosing the right methodology, you're choosing the right management plan that basically proves that you will be able to carry out your research in the set time frame, and what you'll come up with is an excellent result. So these are the three criteria that your proposal will be assessed for. They account for 50% excellence, impact is 30%, and implementation is 20%. Importantly, there are no individual thresholds. There's only an overall threshold, and that is 70%. To have a chance at being successful, you need to be somewhere in the vicinity of 90%. Another question, are all the proposals evaluated in the same panel? Now, I'm sure our audience members today are coming from very different scientific disciplines, and the answer is no. You will have to choose to submit your proposal to one of 8 scientific panels. You see them here on the right, and a little bit of strategic thinking goes into that. I mean, for most of us, is quite clear cut which panel your proposal should go in, but you might be working on a research topic where there's a little bit of an overlap. So you will have to be quite careful in where you place your proposal, because there is a separate ranking list for each panel. So if you choose the physics panel, you'll be competing against proposals that are very clearly in that field. And if yours is a little bit weak, then that might be to your disadvantage. Again, there's a separate ranking list for each panel. So you're not, as a physics researcher, you're not competing to the people in the social sciences, and vice versa. So each panel is assessed within itself. There are also 3 multidisciplinary panels. The first one is the Career Restart panel. That might be for researchers that have taken a time out. For example, they've had a child, they've taken maternity leave, paternity leave, they've had an illness that prevented them from carrying out their research. That would be a panel, as you see, multidisciplinary, so where you could apply for. I'm not sure, but there might be some EU citizens listening right now, and there we have the reintegration panel. So for example, you've been away from Europe for a long time, you're in Malaysia, but you're thinking about coming back on a long-term basis, then you would probably want to submit your proposal to the reintegration panel. And there's also the Society and Enterprise panel for those researchers that are seeking to work on projects in the non-academic sector, so purely in a non-academic sector. If you want to carry out your research with a business or maybe with a government body in Europe, then that would be the panel, the multidisciplinary panel that you would submit your application to. I get that question sometimes, can you submit your proposal to 2 panels at the same time? And the answer is no, you will have to pick just one. What is funded? And this is just, I think, to give you a rough idea about the value of the fellowship. The numbers here vary, of course, depending on whether the living expenses in the country that you're choosing in Europe are high or low. So in Germany, you might get a number close to this, whereas in other countries where living expenses are not so high, the number will be a bit lower. The bottom line is that this is a very generous fellowship. You do not have any teaching commitments, so you can purely focus on your research. There's also a family allowance. So if you do have a spouse and you do have children, you will be obtaining additional funds to take care of your family. What is the success rate? And I always say to take a little break before I show you the numbers. The numbers look like this. There is an average success rate of 14 to 16%, which is not high, that's true. But this is a hugely prestigious fellowship with lots and lots of applications. Some are not so good, some are excellent. I always like to remind you to see this as a challenge. This is really an opportunity for you to make that extra step and propel your career to a higher level. We have a growing number of successful applicants from Southeast Asia, and I really hope that we have more applicants from Malaysia in this round, so that would be wonderful. This is the timeline. I got this question last time. When will you hear about the outcome? And as you can see here, the call opened on the 8th of April, and you will have to submit your proposal by the 10th of September. And in February next year, you will hear whether you've been successful or not. The first possible start date would then be May next year, but this is a fellowship where there's a lot of flexibility because the funder understands that you might have other commitments that you need to finish up first. You have up to a year to postpone the beginning of the fellowship. So again, it's a reasonably flexible timeline. How do you get started? Maybe if I just summarize this quickly. So this is a postdoc fellowship. You need to have a PhD. It's entirely up to you what you want to research. It's very generously funded, and you can do this for between 1 and 2 years. How do you get started? I think the first one is to find the call for application. I'm just clicking through this here. I will share the slides with you later on, and you will find this QR code. The reason why it's important to look at the call details is because of these 2 documents here, especially the one on the right, the guide for applicants. The guide for applicants is really your go-to document. It really lists in great detail what the proposal should contain. So you, and that would be my suggestion, should print this out and read it in close detail. Maybe also put it next to your screen when it comes to writing the proposal to just make sure that you're addressing everything that's mentioned in the guide for applicants. As an extra tip, do make reference to everything that is mentioned in the guide for applicants. There's, for example, something in there that talks about a gender dimension, and a lot of, especially hard science, people will say there is no gender dimension in my research whatsoever. Do not forget to address it, even if you just say there is no gender dimension in my research. What the evaluator wants to do is just tick the box to say the applicant has addressed this issue. If you just leave it out, this is going to cause a problem for you. The second step is to develop a research idea. I'm sure you already have one. A lot of us that come out of a PhD, you know already what excites you. But of course, talking to your peers would be the sensible thing to do. Talk to your supervisor, talk to your lab mates, talk to people that you meet at conferences, just to kind of get a very firm idea about what it is that you want to do. And then, of course, as I said, you need to find a host. How do you do this? Finding a host, of course, personal contacts are always best. You yourself are academics, you know how difficult it is to keep up with email contacts. And if someone just emails you out of the blue, it'll take at least a week for you to respond. At least that's my experience. So if you already have someone that you've worked with before, someone that you've presented with at an academic conference, ask your supervisor for his or her recommendations. Maybe there is a person that you keep quoting in your own academic writing. That would be a good start. My advice would also be to go down to your international relations office or your research support office to find out which international linkages your current university already has. And that's always easier to kind of jump on an existing relation than to start something from scratch. Nonetheless, I want to also recommend something for you, which I think is a fabulous tool. It is the EURAXESS portal. EURAXESS, of course, is the institution, the organization that I'm representing. Once again, this slide here is hyperlinked, and later on you can look at this. But what you find on the EURAXESS portal are hosting offers. So we have, I looked at this just now, already over 300 listings from universities in Europe that are actively looking to host Marie Curie Fellows for this call. So they're all across the continent. I just picked out a few for you here just to see. So in Spain, in Greece, Malta, Italy, Spain again, I think here is Luxembourg, Cyprus, Italy. What is interesting about these hosting offers is that they usually come with the offer of a master class. So they already have the structure in place to guide applicants successfully through the application process. Previously, they would do this by inviting applicants. With the COVID situation, all of this has been moved online. But I looked at this, the deadlines have not passed yet for quite a few of them. So this is a really good point in time right now to look at these hosting offers and see whether there is already an organization that matches with your own interests and that you might be able to consider as a host. There's something else that I wanted to mention to you, maybe just to wrap this up. So basically, finding the host, having an idea, that is what you should be working on right now. We will have a follow-up webinar in July. I'll show you the slide in a minute, where we'll look a little bit into detail into how to draft a proposal that is very strong, very effective, and has good chances at being successful. But for the time being, really, you should go to the call, look at the details again. If you think this is what I want to do, work on your research idea and simultaneously try to find a host and then just get started. I wanted to tell you about something else that might be interesting for some of you in Malaysia as well. The Marie Curie Individual Fellowships are all about mobility, but not just from the rest of the world to Europe, but also from Europe to go outside. So you can also host a European fellow at your institution in Malaysia. These are the so-called global fellowships. And a fellow from Europe would stay with you at your institution in Malaysia for up to 2 years. The difference is that this person would have to return to Europe for a mandatory 1-year return phase. But what's interesting here is in the last line, this is fully funded. So this would be a fabulous opportunity for you to, once again, deepen those linkages with your European partners by hosting a fellow at your own institution without having to pay for it. How do you find a fellow? Of course, the same applies as to you trying to find your own host, look at your own network. Look who's already in your network that you might want to work with on this one. Reach out to your professional contacts and alert them to the fact that you want to host someone. And thirdly, make use of EURAXESS and our portal. You can post your offer on our portal for the European target audience to see that there is someone in Malaysia who wants to host a fellow. Where do you find more information? There is lots and lots of information online. There is, of course, the official website of the MSCA. On that, you will find lots of testimonials. You will find also links to individuals that you can contact for help. We have the participant portal where you will find the call itself. You find there also a long list of frequently asked questions. Some of them might be relevant to you. So again, a great resource. And of course, use the EURAXESS ASEAN portal. And by all means, do contact me if you need further assistance. I have hyperlinked something here. Read this. What hides behind this headline is a guidebook. We have colleagues that have taken the trouble to look through the evaluator feedback forms of 1 year when this call was open, and they've put this together in a fantastic handbook where you can really see what works, what doesn't work. What does it mean to have something that's excellent? What does impact mean? What does implementation mean? So this really is a fabulous tool for you. And finally, as I said, we will have a follow-up webinar in early July. We will be joined then by evaluators, not evaluators of this call, this is not possible, but evaluators that have evaluated proposals for previous calls. And they will give us some really detailed feedback and hands-on advice on what makes a successful grant application. My last request for you would be to follow us on Facebook, where all our events are announced and that you're always up to date. But as I said at the beginning, all these slides today are hyperlinked and they will be shared with all of you, everybody that registered, within the next couple of days. In the slides, you also find my contact details, so you can always follow up with me if you need further assistance. And I think this means now we have sufficient time for questions and answers. Maybe I'll hand over to you, Norhaida.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Susanna. So for the audience, if you have any question, please type in the chat box.
If you don't have any questions, don't worry. In the slides, I have added about 20 questions that I've received from previous webinars. So there are answers there already. But in any case, as I said, on the slides, you have my email address, and you can just address any questions to me personally, and I will then give you an answer.
Okay. Okay, is it my setting? Are there any questions? Please type and send to probably the staff, because you can choose from who to send your message to. And while waiting, probably I might want to promote MSCA. It's the Alumni Association for those who have granted any types of Marie Sklodowska-Curie Action grants. Either it's individual fellowship, RISE program, global fellowship, and any other. So as long as you have gone through the secondments, you can apply to be a member of Marie Curie Alumni Association online, And once your membership has been approved, you can join the Southeast Asian chapter. And we actually are working in a global network to promote research and also knowledge. And we have many activities actually, and we are working closely together with EURAXESS ASEAN.
Good. I see the slides, the questions here. They're under questions, Nurhaida. Maybe I'll just try to answer some of them. So one person asked, how often is this funding fellowship offered? This is an annual call. So the next call will open around the same time next year. So around April with a deadline sometime in September. Maybe just to preempt, maybe someone is asking this question. If you have applied for this before and you were not successful, you can apply again. You can apply again with the same proposal and also with the same host. So this is not an uncommon occurrence. A lot of fellows apply once or twice. What I think is very helpful is that no matter whether you're successful or not, you get a very detailed evaluator report. So the evaluator will give you very detailed feedback, and that very often helps the successful applicants to kind of get these extra percentage points in the next round. Someone else asked, how will you get the slides? You will get an automated email through the GoToWebinar system, and that will include a link where you can download the slides. Someone asks, oops, I can't. The supervisor has to be from Europe? Well, the supervisor has to be in Europe, so you have to apply with a host institution in Europe. But if the person in Europe is Malaysian or Indonesian or Indian or whatever, that doesn't matter. It's just that this person has to be based at an institution in Europe. The statistics for researchers from Malaysia, the statistics I don't have at the top of my head, but I can tell you what the big hurdle that we have is that people in Malaysia don't apply. We have successful applicants. In fact, the statistics probably looks quite good, maybe like 50% or something, because we have so few applicants. And that is really what I hope we can rectify. We need more Malaysians to really try and go for this, because it really is a wonderful opportunity. Nurhaida can probably, if you send her an email, put you in touch with some of the other fellows. Nurhaida is also a Marie Curie Fellow, but I think she is a beneficiary of a different type of grant, which is about collaboration. Yes. But the Marie Curie Alumni Association would be a good starting point to get in touch with other Malaysians. There's a question here about the opportunity to host a European fellow and if there's specific requirements. There are no specific requirements other than you need to be a good match. It's very similar. It mirrors the application for the European fellowship when you want to go to Europe. So again, the European fellow and you as the Malaysian institution and Malaysian host need to make sure that the funder sees that this is a very good fit, that this person that comes here benefits from your infrastructure, from your expertise, from the supervision that he or she can obtain. And of course, the person that comes here brings something with him or her, like a link to their institution or some other expertise. So it's pretty much the same way. Don't know why this is so condensed here. Here, now it's better. Who applies? The person that applies is, I said you need to develop the proposal together, and that is very important. But of course, the actual submission is done by the applicant. So if in case of the European fellowship, you going to Europe, it's you. And in the case of you hosting a fellow in Malaysia, it's also the fellow that does the physical typing and pressing the send button on the portal. But you need to, I think, if you want to host someone in Malaysia, you need to, not you, but your institution would need to have some offer of consent, just to indicate that you're willing to host this person and that you do indeed have the facilities for this person, like an office or a lab space or whatever. So that this is where you would work with your with a research support office at your institution. So something else. A student who has completed her Viva but has yet to receive the PhD. Yes, there is a way to obtain this. If you can get some form of confirmation from your institution, from your university, that you've passed the Viva and you have in fact already finished your PhD, then you're also eligible. Let me see the next question. Can a person with 4 years of experience who is currently a student apply? Currently a student, yes, of course. It doesn't matter what you're currently doing. As long as you fulfill the eligibility criteria, meaning you have 4 years of full-time research experience after obtaining the academic qualification that allows you to reach for a PhD, then yes, you can, even if you're currently a PhD student. Let me see. How about institution in Ireland? Yes. No, Ireland is just eligible. Ireland is a full member of the European Union still. And if you have good linkages there, that would be a good opportunity to explore a host relationship. As I mentioned at the end, these hosting offers that are on the EURAXESS portal would be an easier opportunity. Of course, it might not always match with your research interests. They might be looking for people in specific disciplines, but if your interest matches with what they offer, that would be ideal, because then you don't have a lot of explanation to do, and they have already the system in place. But Ireland is also a great opportunity for you. Let me see what else there is here. Can a rejected proposal 2 times rejected be resubmitted? Yes, it can. I've already said that. And you, of course, you should be doing alterations to it. Huh? You can apply with the same proposal and with the same host institution, but clearly something didn't work out, so you should make some amendments. But you don't have to change the host or the idea. I think that's all we have for right now. Just looking through the questions here again.
Okay, Susan.
Yeah.
How about the allowed delay in starting the secondments? I mean, once an applicant has been approved, application has been approved, probably the candidate wants to make some adjustment. Not starting right away.
Yeah, I mean, first, as you mentioned, the secondment, because I had this question last time, people were asking, does the secondment also have to be in Europe? Yes, it does. It does have to be in Europe, and the secondment needs to make a valuable contribution to your research proposal. So I know I said building in a secondment makes yours a strong proposal, but only if it is meaningful. So if it's not clear to the evaluator why all of a sudden you want to go to company XYZ, don't put it in. Only build it in if it is meaningful. And of course, life happens. There might be a change in plan. There might be the restructuring of the company that you were thinking about going to. There's always an opportunity to change after you've been awarded the fellowship. But this is a later stage. Right now, just work on the proposal, make it as tight and neat as possible. I have another question here. Does the fellowship offer for early career only or any age limit? So as I said, there is no age limit. There's also no career experience limit. What is important to remember, this is a career development grant. So this is the money that's earmarked for the career development of individual researchers. And of course, it's most applicable to people that have finished their PhD and they want to make the next step to become a PI. But as I said before, sometimes you find yourself in your career, even after 1 or 2 postdocs, where you are lacking this one fellowship to just make the next jump because, for example, your research is, you're trying to find out whether your research methodology is applicable to another discipline, or whether, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And for this fellowship is also an opportunity. You, of course, need to make a strong case in your proposal that the evaluator sees, aha, this person is trying to get from A to B, and this fellowship is exactly the little stepping stone that they need right now to be able to make that step. So in a nutshell, there is no age limit, there's also no experience limit, but it needs to be evident from your proposal why you want to do this. It's not meant as just a stopgap. So I don't really know what to do for 2 years, so I'm applying for this. This will not be successful, but you really need to map it out for the evaluator that they can have a vision of you where you're going to be in 2 years' time. I think that's pretty much it for questions. I think we've answered them all, Nohaida.
Yes, probably. Okay, I cannot see on my end.
Yeah, I think, as I said, we'll be sharing the slides. They'll be uploaded on the EURAXESS portal. Everything is hyperlinked. Do look at this at your own leisure. Whenever you have questions, contact me. And as Nohaida said, the Marie Curie Alumni Association Southeast Asia chapter, so long, is also available to help you and support you.
Yeah, and just contact any of us here.
Exactly. So with this, I think I'll thank all of you for today, and do keep in mind, follow-up seminar in July, and then we'll be looking at how to make this a strong proposal. So hopefully we have more successful applicants from Malaysia. And with this, I say terima kasih, stay safe everyone, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.